It was incorrect.
So your memory was faulty about that incident, that part of that incident at least?
It happened on the way out of the house.
So your memory was faulty about that part of the incident that you testified to at the grand jury?
Yes.
Okay.
Your memory was wrong, right? You have to confirm this for me.
When was the last time you spoken to Jennifer McCabe before you testified?
This morning.
They're talking every day.
Did you discuss your testimony?
No.
Lie. We all know that's a lie, right?
And that was a false statement, wasn't it?
Technically.
Technically?
Yes, technically.
Did you lie?
I did not intentionally.
But you did.
Not intentionally.
Day 2 of the Karen Reed trial was wild. Defense lawyers get out that Carrie Roberts lied to the grand jury. Today does not go well for Carrie Roberts. Now, I'm not an expert, but she may have committed perjury. You'll see later in this video. Hit subscribe. Let's go.
Do you see the white area in that photograph?
Yes.
Is that where the taillight had missing part?
Yes.
And where was the metal in relation to that white part that you see?
If you look at the white part, it's the upper left. It's sort of like a rectangle, but it's vertical, sort of. Yes, one of the sides, it's almost like an encasement, but the right side, I think it was the right side, was sticking out a little bit, like out from the car toward me.
Did you express any concern about the metal sticking out?
Yes, because I thought at that height it could clip someone's coat or something if they were walking by.
You mentioned the defendant asked you if you thought she hit somebody.
Correct.
How many times did she ask you that?
She asked me that in the driveway. How many times? She said, do you think I hit him? Do you think I hit him? And my answer was no, I don't think you hit him. I'm sure you hit something because your taillight's broken, but I don't think you hit him. Why would I think that?
Did she ever repeat that phrase or question in the same or similar manner again that night?
She did at the scene where we found John.
Before or after you found John?
After we found John.
Okay.
I don't even remember at this point what she was yelling, but she was yelling. She had an elevated voice. She was in between us while I was driving, and she would sit back in the back seat and be in between us.
Did you have any words with Miss Reed?
I told her to shut up several times because I was trying to drive and I couldn't concentrate. I told her to sit back and buckle up because it was bad driving. I didn't want to get into an accident and her not have a seatbelt on.
How often was the yelling on the way to Fairview?
Oh, several times. It was like you couldn't control her, and I was trying to drive in a blizzard. Well, it was the shape of a body, like the length of a body, shape of a body. She ran over, and I said, oh my God. I jumped out of the car. I ran over, and she was lifting up his shirt to try and warm him, I guess. So I went over to his head, and I began to dig his head out of the snow.
Oh, so she touched him and shit. Okay.
His body was completely covered, but his head was completely covered, so I started to dig around his face and his eyes, and his left eye was fine, but his right eye looked like it was huge, like he had something happen to it. And after that, I told Karen to get off him. We were going to start CPR. Been certified at work through the American Red Cross, so I knew chest compressions were more important. So I started to do chest compressions, and I yelled to Jen and told her to call 911. Karen was trying to do mouth-to-mouth. I don't know if she knew what she was doing, but I knew chest compressions were more important. So
You mentioned that his head was covered in snow. Was his head fully covered in snow?
yes. She was just running around screaming, Carrie, Carrie, Jen, Carrie, Jen. EMTs were around, and they were working on the body. She was running around and saying, did I hit him? Did I hit him? Is he dead? Is he dead? And Karen was saying, is he dead? Is he dead? Is he dead? And I said, no, they're working on him. I can see tubes moving. I can see them moving. Something, if he was dead, they wouldn't be working on him. She grabbed the front of my shirt and said, are they working on him? And I said, yes, they're working on him. At this point, I think I was in shock. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't think he was dead. I thought they could save him. I knew he was in the EMT, in the ambulance with the EMTs, and I was just hopeful that they were going to be able to do more than I could. She was on the phone with her mother, and I think, and Karen said to me, if anything happens to John, I'm going to kill myself. You're going to have to take care of the kids. And I said, nobody's dying. Nobody's killing themselves. Let's not think about that.
Jesus Christ.
Shortly after they moved John from the ground and brought him to the bed to bring him to the ambulance, did you go back to where John lay when you first saw him?
Yes, I did.
Did she see the taillight fragments?
Go back to the spot where John was lying when you first saw him.
When they lifted him up, there was grass underneath him, and I could see his phone. So I went over and picked up the phone and the 2 baby blankets that were left on the ground.
So let me ask you, when you went back to where John was lying on the ground, you said you saw grass. There was not snow under him?
No, there was not.
Was there many inches of snow around that area?
Yes.
But none where he was lying under him?
So state's trying to get the point across that was hit before it started snowing and laid on top of grass, and then snow buried him. Because remember, the defense says that John wasn't there, and they have a fucking plow driver or whatever that says he didn't see him there either. But
what did you do with John's phone when you picked it up from the ground?
I put it in my pocket and gave it to a first responder and on the phone, Mrs. O'Keefe said, Karen, what happened? And she said, I left him at a party. And Mrs. O'Keefe said, and you just left him? And Mr. O'Keefe said, all right, that's enough. She's been through enough. I thought he was going to look better seeing him in the hospital because he had been worked on, but he was not. There was much more blood. When I brushed the snow off his face, his left eye was fine. It had an ice cube on it that I pulled off, but the right eye was out to here, like a golf ball. When I got to the hospital, both eyes were swollen with, it looked like blood. They looked purple.
oh God, showing her pictures of him in the hospital, I think.
Yes, he did.
I asked that the camera not go now, please.
I'd like to mark this as an exhibit. I will not publish it.
Mrs. O'Keefe at one point did say, you two need to sit.
Assisting.
Did you ever write down a list of things that had happened to try to remember?
Yes.
When you were spending time with Miss McCabe, did you become friendly?
Yes.
Friends?
Yes.
How close of friends did you become?
She, to this day, is a close friend of mine.
To this day.
Yes.
Interesting. She's friends with her now.
As you were watching and learning information, did you begin to contact people at the district attorney's office?
Yes, I did.
Did that include victim witness advocates?
Yes.
Did it include law enforcement assigned to the case?
Objection.
Yes.
Steve Nelson, my victim advocate, Yuri Buchanan, who was a state trooper, and at one point I contacted Michael Morrissey's office.
Michael Morrissey, I think that name sounds familiar. I don't remember from where. I think that's a district attorney or something.
So that same day you found John, you were interviewed?
Yes.
Do you remember who interviewed you?
I do not.
Do you remember your mental state at that time?
I was not well.
That location where you picked up the phone and blankets, was that where John was lying?
Yes, it was.
And is that where you saw the ground that did not have snow?
Yes, it was.
At that point, had you put the cell phone in your pocket?
Yes.
Stop, please. The person in the blue jacket, do you know who that is on the right side of the screen?
That's Jen McCabe.
And you can't see you now. Do you know where you are at this point?
I don't know where I am.
Continue, please.
They were in a police car at some point.
Did you do anything with them when they were in that car?
At one point, Karen asked us to say a prayer, to pray, so we said a prayer.
Oh, so that did happen. So it's interesting. The first responder yesterday said he doesn't remember that at all, or didn't hear that, or see that, or anything, or didn't say that in his statement or whatever. All right, cross-examination. This is going to be interesting. I would imagine Mr. Jackson here is going to go crazy.
How many times in total do you think you've spoken to a representative of the district attorney's office?
I don't have a number.
Would you say it's more than a dozen?
Yes.
Would you say it's more than 50?
Maybe around there.
Okay.
Maybe less.
Damn. Talk to them 50 times?
The folks, Ms. Roberts, that you have spoken to at the DA's office.
Steve Nelson,
Okay.
the victim advocate, Yuri Buchanan, who's a state police officer, and the DA, Michael Morrissey.
One of the names she just said, Buchanan, disciplined for failing to reprimand Proctor over behavior in Reed case.
The conversations with Mr. Morrissey, the elected district attorney. What were the circumstances under which you contacted Mr. Morrissey?
Well, during the course of this trial, the witnesses have been harassed.
That's not my question.
Objection.
But I'm answering your question.
Hold on.
Jeez. Witnesses have been harassed.
I had one other meeting with other witnesses
Okay.
and the DA.
And turning to Yuri Buchanan, what were the logistics? I'll use that word in some circumstances. What were the logistics of you contacting Yuri Buchanan? Was it by phone? Was it in-person meetings, text messages, or all of the above?
All of the above. Going over my testimony from the last trial,
Okay.
and sort of just asking questions on what might come this time. Would I be cross-examined? I wasn't last time. Just sort of, all the things went through my testimony.
Okay. When was that meeting?
I don't know, in the last couple of weeks. I don't know.
Okay. Where was the meeting?
At the DA's office. Talked about my testimony from the last time.
Okay. When you say you went over your testimony on screen, what do you mean?
We watched my testimony from the first trial on a TV screen.
Okay. So you were shown something. You were shown a video of your prior testimony.
Yes.
So I'd like to see counsel at sidebar for just a minute, please.
She was shown her prior testimony from the first trial.
Mr. Brennan had just asked me, can you just tell me what happened? So I told him the story verbally.
Okay. Anything come up about specific instances of how you were going to testify today?
No.
Or yesterday?
No.
Okay.
When I was doing chest compressions and Karen was doing mouth-to-mouth, Jen was either on the phone with 911 or handing me baby blankets.
Okay.
At some point, she did take over doing chest compressions because I asked her to.
Okay. Something to the effect of, my boyfriend, I left him, he never came home.
I do not.
Okay. Have you listened with audio to that dash cam at the moment that Officer Saraf arrives at the scene and y'all flag him down?
We just watched it.
Right. Have you listened to it for the audio side? I mean, in other words, instead of focusing on the
no.
video.
No.
Okay. I'd like to ask you to do that with the court's permission. This is it's been previously marked as Exhibit 4.
No.
Did you hear a woman's voice kind of faint in the background?
I heard a voice, but I didn't make out what she was saying.
Okay. Did it sound like she said, my boyfriend, I dropped him off and he never came home?
Objection.
Could you hear that, Ms. Roberts?
No.
Okay.
Next question.
So defense trying to point out, she said, my boyfriend, I dropped him off and he never came home, I guess.
Did you see his right arm?
I did.
Did it appear to you that he had some abrasions or lacerations, parallel abrasions and lacerations and punctures on his right arm?
They were scratches.
Scratches.
How do y'all feel about them scratches? Definitely a weird wound, to say the least. But I don't know if is that normal when you get hit by a car?
You got out of you got out of your SUV, they got out of the Lexus, and that's a point at which Karen showed you the back of her taillight and said something to the effect of, do you think I hit him? Do you think I hit him? Oh my God, do you think I hit him? You recall that?
I recall saying I didn't know if it was when we were coming or going, but she did point out the taillight.
Okay. Did you testify, quote, Karen pulls in and I pull in behind her, period. When we get out, and Karen is now showing us the back of the car saying, my taillight, do you think I hit him? Do you think I hit him? Oh my God, do you guys think I hit him? Question mark.
Do you have the pages after this?
I'm sure I do.
Because in the pages after this, I say...
My question, Ms. Roberts, is that a quote that I just said, is that accurate? You see it in the...
Yes, it is.
Okay. May I approach?
Yes.
Pointing out an inconsistent statement. She's trying to add context because apparently she says there's more context to it.
What I'm looking for is still not here because I did say I wasn't sure if it was before or after.
Ms. Roberts, you do have to wait.
When you gave this testimony, you were in front of a grand jury, correct?
I'm not sure which one that is.
Do you remember testifying in front of a grand jury on April 26th, 2022.
Yes.
Okay, about 2 years ago.
Yes.
Sorry, 3 years ago. Do you recognize what's depicted in the video?
Yep, that's when we arrived at John's house.
Okay, and who's the person with the plaid red pants?
That is Jen.
And who's the person that's just rounding the back of the car in front?
That is Karen.
What is the car in front?
That's Karen's SUV.
That's the Lexus SUV.
Yes, it is.
Behind that Lexus SUV, Ms. Roberts, is there another car?
That's my car.
And who's getting out of that car?
I am.
Okay, and this is the point that you were describing in your, at least in the grand jury testimony at that time.
Yes.
This is the time that you're describing.
That I thought it was when we walked in.
This is the time that you were describing, right? When you arrive at the scene.
Yes.
Or, I'm sorry, arrive at One Meadows.
Yes.
Okay, let's go ahead and play this through. Okay, interaction between all three of you and the vehicles, correct?
Yep.
At any point, did anybody stop and take a look at the tail light or the rear end of the car?
Not when we were entering the house like I thought, but when we came out.
Okay, and there's no video of that.
I'm sorry?
There's no video of that.
No, I don't believe so.
Right. So the video that does exist describes nearly exactly the time that you testified that y'all stopped at the back of the taillight and Karen said, look, my taillight's broken. Oh my God, do you think I hit it?
Correct.
Okay. And that obviously was incorrect.
It was incorrect.
So your memory was faulty about that incident, that part of that incident at least.
It happened on the way out of the house.
So your memory was faulty about that part of the incident that you testified to at the grand jury.
Yes.
Okay.
Your memory is wrong, right? You have to confirm this for me. So defense lawyer, I think, just pointed out that she lied to the grand jury about the tail light, all three of them looking at the tail light or whatever.
Did you ever receive any kind of response from the DA's office either before or after you relayed this information to the O'Keefes to say, wait, hold on, we need to do a reconstruction, we need to make sure that the camera is in the exact same spot that it was at the time of the incident?
No.
Any communication like that?
No.
So the communication that you got was, yep, go ahead and replace it, it's no big deal.
Correct.
Okay. Ultimately, only to await you learned that the O'Keefes did, in fact, replace that ring camera.
Correct.
You obviously understand the importance of providing statements to law enforcement that are free of influence of other people, other witnesses. Is that right?
Say it again?
You understand the importance of providing information to law enforcement as a witness to law enforcement free of influence from other people.
Yeah.
In other words, you want to be as accurate and as independent as possible.
Yes.
And that's because if your statement is somehow, or if your communications with law enforcement are somehow influenced by others, it might call into question the credibility of the person providing the statement.
Objection.
Can you answer that question, Ms. Roberts?
No.
Okay, next question.
Sure. A statement that's been colored by influence from someone else would lack credibility, right?
Objection.
Sustained.
Isn't it true that Jen McCabe called you and spoke to you just before that?
I spoke to Jen McCabe the entire day.
Okay. Including just before that interview.
I don't know.
Did you tell Jen McCabe that you were about to be interviewed?
No.
Did you tell her at some point did you text her and tell her that the officers had arrived?
I don't think so.
Did she text you back and say, call me right after?
I don't know.
Okay.
Defense trying to point out her, Miss Roberts right here, and Jim McCabe, I believe, are fucking liars in some ways.
I mean, they asked me what happened. I told them, but I was also in shock.
You never said during the course of that interview that my client called you at 5 o'clock in the morning just hours earlier and said he's dead and then hung up, correct?
No, I don't believe I said it at that point. I did not remember that until a couple days later.
I see. And in fact, when you were asked about that particular statement, when you were asked about that particular series of events, that never came to your mind.
No.
That literally, the first words out of Karen Reed's mouth, according to you now, is he's dead and then hung up.
Correct.
When you heard that, you didn't take that to mean that she killed him.
No.
Of course not. She was panicked, correct?
Yes.
So the second time you told your memory, your story to law enforcement, you were literally sitting in Jennifer McCabe's house.
Yes.
And you had met with Jennifer McCabe before your interview, correct?
Yes. We were putting a timeline together.
So you two were actually prepping, if that's a valid term, prepping for your interview, putting a timeline together, correct?
We were putting a timeline together at the request of Mrs. O'Keefe.
And Jennifer McCabe was helping you with the timeline, and you were helping her with the timeline.
Yes, we were putting together the events of what had happened.
So she was helping you, and you were helping her, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. So both of you were assisting in each other's memories, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, this is memory contamination if I've ever heard it. Witnesses talking to each other is not good, even if they were together.
I remember this, and you remember this, and okay, now I remember this, correct?
Yep.
Obviously, that would help influence your memory, going
Yes.
over the event with someone else, correct?
Yep.
So what's on that timeline, you would agree, is not completely independent, your memory. It's a combination of your memory and Jennifer McCabe's memory. Isn't that right?
Yes.
Which is not good.
We did not. I was at Jen's house making a timeline, and the two officers showed up to interview her. I just happened to be there.
Right. And when they interviewed you, did you have that timeline in front of you? That's my question.
No, I did not.
Okay. But you had just created it along with Jennifer McCabe.
Some of it.
Okay. And then it was after that that this timeline was coordinated between the two of you that you actually told your second story to Trooper Prince. And when I say second story, I mean as the second time you were interviewed on February 1st as opposed to January 29th. Is that right?
Yes.
Did you ever become aware of text messages that Jennifer McCabe was sending to others in a group chat talking about you in that interview?
No.
You were never told or became aware that she sent text messages to a group as she listened in on your interview?
No. I don't think she could listen in. She wasn't anywhere near me.
You weren't aware that or are you aware as you sit here that she sent a text message that said she's telling them everything, all this stuff?
Sustained.
What? She was Jim McCabe was texting in a group chat saying she's telling her everything. What? Dude, this is so messy.
Have you ever been provided a text message or told about a text message that perhaps Jennifer McCabe was sending to a group?
No.
Listening to your suggesting that she was listening to your interview?
No.
Do you remember testifying in front of a grand jury?
I do.
Okay, let's talk about that for a second. Before you testified at that grand jury, just physically, you were brought into an anteroom where you waited to be called by ADA Adam Loudon, correct?
Yes.
Who was in that anteroom with you just before you gave your testimony?
My husband and Jen and Matt McCabe.
So Jennifer McCabe was with you yet again just before you gave
Yep.
official testimony under oath concerning this case and concerning the incident.
Correct.
So it sounds like Jim McCabe is influencing a lot of shit here, boys. This is some sketchy stuff right here. Why are witnesses discussing shit like this? I mean, I know they're friends, but come on, bro.
Ms. Roberts, when was the last time you've spoken to Jennifer McCabe before you testified in this trial?
In this morning.
They're talking every day, even when she's testifying.
Did you discuss your testimony?
No.
Lie. We all know that's a fucking lie, right? 1,000,000%.
So you and Ms. McCabe, who became friends because
Correct.
of this incident,
Correct.
talked as recently as this morning before your testimony.
Correct.
And your testimony now is that you did not discuss anything about what you're doing here
No.
or what you're
I
going to
did
testify
not. She
to.
called to wish me good luck today.
When did you talk to her the last time before this morning?
I don't know, maybe a couple days ago? I don't remember.
Lie. Yesterday, too.
Within days of you taking the stand yesterday, correct?
Yes.
Karen asked the three of you to pray.
Yes.
Have you ever said or testified that during that interaction where you're seated, where they are seated in the back of the patrol car and Ms. Reed asked you to pray, that Ms. Reed said to Jennifer McCabe, Google hypothermia?
No.
You've never said that.
I've never said that.
You testified at the grand jury on April 26th, is that right? April 26th, 2022?
I do not
Is that
know.
right? Is it your testimony that you have never said that Karen told Jen to Google hypothermia, or that you don't recall saying that?
I don't recall saying that.
Will it refresh your recollection to look at a portion of your grand jury testimony from that day?
It might.
May I approach?
Yes.
I testified. I didn't hear it, but I was told that she was asked to Google it.
Huh? She was told.
You testified under oath, and you testified basically that you think, at least that's what you were telling the grand jurors, that you
Yep.
think that was the point at which they lifted John up
Yes.
and moved him into the ambulance, correct? Is that right?
Yes.
And then you were asked a question, what, if anything, did she, Ms. Reed, ask Ms. McCabe while they were sitting in the back of the cruiser that you heard, correct? Objection.
Do you recall that?
I did not hear the question about Google being asked.
You were next asked by Mr. Lally in front of the grand jury, quote, what, if anything, did she, Ms. Reed, ask Ms. McCabe while they were sitting in the back of the cruiser that you heard, end quote. Remember being asked that question?
No.
The actual words used, you were as detailed about all of that as the actual words used. She asked her to Google hypothermia and how long, and then you stopped, Google hypothermia, end quote, correct?
Correct.
You will agree, at least for that purpose, you painted a very, very detailed picture in front of the grand jury, didn't you?
Yeah.
Except it's not true, is it?
I did not hear her ask that. I was told she was asked that. In
The
the,
answer to my question, Ms. Roberts, and it's not a trick question, what you told the grand jurors was not true. You never heard her, my client, ask anyone to Google anything, did you?
I did not.
And yet, that's what you testified to under oath, under penalty of perjury, in front of the grand jury, didn't you?
I did.
And the reason you did that, the reason that you said that false statement, was because someone told you to say it, correct?
Object.
Is that? I'm going to let her answer.
Nobody told me to say it. I knew it happened at that time,
How did you
which
know
is why
it
I said
happened?
it.
How did you know it happened, Ms. Roberts, if no one told you it happened?
Because we wrote a timeline. We already spoke about
So
that.
the timeline that Jennifer McCabe helped you with, that influenced your testimony in front of the grand jury, correct? Obviously.
I was telling what happened in the back of the cruiser.
Miss Roberts added in shit from their timeline that they made together, and she didn't even see it or hear it firsthand to a grand jury.
Karen Reed ever say anything to Jennifer McCabe about Googling anything, correct?
I don't know.
Isn't it true that you told them what you've just now told us, which is, I did not hear Karen Reed ask Jennifer McCabe to conduct any Google searches?
I don't recall.
Would it refresh your recollection to look at a copy of that interview and that report?
Sure.
You saw McCabe on her phone, but you did not hear Karen ask Jennifer to Google anything.
Correct.
So what you told the grand jurors was, in fact, false.
I misunderstood Mr. Lally's question.
Got it.
About your memory, were you trying to fool them in any way?
No.
Were you trying to
Objection.
Watch the form of your questions.
were you trying to mislead them in any way?
Objection.
Sustain. Watch the form of your questions.
When you spoke to the grand jury, were you honest?
Yes.
When you were asked the question, what, if anything, did the defendant ask Ms. McCabe, did you begin your response by saying, at one point?
You can show her her response.
Did you ever say you specifically, personally heard that statement?
I'll allow that.
Did you
No,
ever
I
tell
did
the
not.
grand jury you actually heard that statement being made?
I did not.
And when you spoke to the people in that report that you looked at on page 7, did you ever tell them you specifically heard that statement being made?
No.
Were you consistent in both of those statements?
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you say anything different as
No.
far as what you personally observed between those statements?
I'll allow that.
No.
And when you were asked about what the defendant may have said to Ms. McCabe, or Mrs. McCabe, did you generalize your answer?
Sustained.
Did you begin your answer with "at one point"?
Yes.
When you chose the words "at one point," what were you trying to convey to the grand jury?
I'll allow that.
I didn't know at what time it was done.
Was that a topic of conversation around the time you were brought to the grand jury?
Around the time what?
That you were brought to the grand jury to testify? This Google search.
Was it? I don't know.
Did you personally hear that statement?
No.
Did you ever confide in other people other than Jen McCabe about what you endured that morning?
Yes, many people.
Why?
Because it helps me get through. And whether John's family, friends, whoever, I've talked to a number of people about it.
That the defendant made to you that morning at 5 o'clock.
Yes.
When you received those phone calls, Jennifer McCabe was not on the line, was she?
No.
Was she a party to the calls?
No.
Did she influence your memory in any way about the words that the defendant spoke to you that morning?
I'll allow that.
No.
Do you have a clear memory of what the defendant said to you on the morning of January 29, 2022, at around 5 in the morning when she first called you?
Yes.
And is it your independent memory?
I'm saying.
Is it
sorry.
your independent memory?
Yes.
How well do you remember it?
Sustained.
Tell us what you remember her saying to you.
I'll allow it.
When she first called, she said, "John's dead. Carrie," and hung up.
And she called you back.
She called back.
When she called back, was there any other party on the line other than you and her?
No. I think he got hit by a plow. He did not come home last night. He would never not have come home. I wasn't supposed to stay in Campton, and Kaylee was here. He would never leave Kaylee by herself.
Did you ever say that you actually heard that statement about that Google search? And you said no.
Correct.
The question that was posed to you by Mr. Lally was, what, if anything, did she, Miss Reed, ask Miss McCabe while they were sitting in the back of the cruiser that you heard?
Right.
Correct?
I misunderstood the question.
And you misunderstood that question?
Yes.
What
I
did you misunderstand about that question?
I didn't know it was that you heard, so I was explaining what happened in the back of the car.
I see. So you just ignored the part, literally, the part of the question where he said, what did you hear her say? That's what your
The word
testimony
was
is now?
heard, and I didn't hear it. I obviously got the question wrong because I did not hear anybody ask about a Google search.
Well, I know that's what you're saying now. I get that. But when you were asked
Her face.
anything, did she ask Miss McCabe while they were sitting in the back of the cruiser that you heard? Your immediate answer was, at one point, she asked her to Google hypothermia and how long dash Google hypothermia, end quote. Correct?
Correct.
That was your answer.
Yes.
Correct?
To a question I misunderstood.
And that was a false statement, wasn't it?
Technically.
Technically?
Yes,
It's like being a little
technically.
bit pregnant, Ms. Roberts.
Okay, so remember, jurors, I said earlier, comments of counsel are not evidence and you have to disregard them. Ask a question.
Thank you, Your Honor. What do you mean technically?
Technically, I was under oath, and I did not hear Karen asked Jen to Google it.
And yet under oath.
But I knew it happened at that
And yet
time.
under oath you said you did.
Correct.
And that was a lie, correct?
Yes.
Was that a lie? Did you lie?
I did not intentionally.
But you did.
And
Not intentionally.
okay, that's the end of
Understood
this.
the question, Mr. Jackson.
Oh, shit's getting spicy.
Is there any other question or was that
I
it?
didn't know what you just said.
I said I misunderstood the question, Mr. Jackson.
That's what you're saying now, correct?
That's what happened.
All right,
Can I ask one more question?
okay.
In that quote,
So this is John O'Keefe's mom, and it's just apparently not testimony that's important, really. Just establishing, I guess, victim impact. Feel bad for her. She's, she lost a son, so not too important to be honest. But
the data from that device to make a digital copy of it so that way we can load it up later to look at it.
so this guy probably just did all the phone extraction bullshit of everyone's phones involved. iCloud backup of John O'Keefe. All right, so this is a paramedic, I believe, that was at the scene.
She kept saying, I can't take care of these kids. I can't take care of these kids. They're not my kids, and they're not his kids. And at that point, I understood who ambulance one had taken, because John was pretty well known in the town for taking on the care of his niece and nephew. Can you ask the question again? I'm sorry.
Why don't you ask it a little different?
Sure. Do you remember whether she was giving the nurses a hard time about a urine sample?
Yes.
So break that down, Mr. Brennan. The objection is sustained.
You said that she was giving nurses a hard time.
She didn't want to give a urine sample. And then the nurses kept asking her to, this is the cup, you pee in the cup.
No, I'm going to allow it.
You were there and saw this, right?
I saw it, yes.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
You told the police that you knew Carrie Roberts from your neighborhood, correct?
Okay, yes.
And you've testified today that she just lived 200 yards away from you, right around the corner, right?
About that.
And you told police that you had seen Carrie Roberts on scene at 34th Fairview when you got there, correct?
Correct.
You also told police that Karen Reed, had told you about making statements about her wanting to die, correct?
Correct.
But on February 8th of 2022, just 10 days after these events, you never mentioned to the police during that interview that Karen was snarky in any way, correct?
I don't know if I did or I didn't. I don't know if it would be in their report. Correct.
Do you still live in that neighborhood? Does Carrie Roberts still live there?
She does.
So you and Kerry Roberts have continued to live in the same neighborhood for years after January 29th, correct?
We have.
And before you ever encountered Karen Reed that day, you had interacted with Kerry Roberts in the past, correct?
Briefly, yes.
Well, you were both on the same neighborhood Facebook page, were you not?
Yes, that's why I volunteered to bring the fire truck to the
Right.
block
So
party.
one time she had posted on that neighborhood Facebook page that she wanted to have a fire truck at the neighborhood block party, correct?
Correct.
And that's when you replied and volunteered that you would bring the fire truck to that block party as she requested, correct?
Correct.
And you also worked with Kerry Roberts on the Ponkapog Civic Association, did you not?
I did not know. She worked on the board prior to my arrival on the board.
So you both worked on the same board, but just at different times?
Different times, correct.
All right. I think you had touched on this earlier. In addition to knowing Kerry Roberts, having been with the Canton Fire Department since 2006, there have been many times when you've worked in conjunction with the police, correct?
Correct.
And in addition to the two police officers that you mentioned having seen at 34 Fairview on January 29th, that being Sarath and Mulaney, you know many other officers at the Canton police station.
I do.
And as you say, Canton's a small town, correct?
Relatively.
People know each other, correct?
Correct.
You also knew former state trooper Michael Proctor before you arrived at 34 Fairview, correct?
I did.
Michael Proctor actually was 2 years ahead of you in school, was he not?
He was.
And you learned at some point that your school classmate, Michael Proctor, was the lead investigator into the death of John O'Keefe, this case, correct?
Yes.
And in fact, when
This motherfucker's connected to everyone. All right, that's it for day 2. Kerry Roberts might have committed perjury, but I don't know. I'm not an expert. Comment down below what you guys think. Hit subscribe. Love you guys. Peace out.